I had hoped, perhaps foolishly, that after the crypt adventure, the Misfits might have enjoyed a period of rest, reflection, and preferably not finding themselves in the center of yet another supernatural, political, or financial disaster. Naturally, this hope lasted roughly as long as a candle in a rain barrel. For though the Merry Misfits had survived the crypt, killed a rather virginity-obsessed vampire, and reunited with the thankfully alive Brenna, the world, being an inconsiderate beast, was already preparing the next calamity. And this one began with a saber, a crestfallen priestess, guild debt, possible regicide, and a dungeon where no dungeon should have been.
The aftermath began in the crypt, where the air still reeked of undeath, violence, and all the other unpleasant perfumes one associates with vampires who have no respect for either sanctity or personal boundaries. Harmony, with the sort of bright cheer that could make a grave shiver, announced that she had slain a predator. Thomas, perhaps wisely, clarified that the creature had been a predator in the most literal and monstrous sense. Barden hoped there was only one. This was a reasonable hope, and thus immediately suspect. Yet the true miracle of the chamber was not the fallen fiend, nor the echo of whatever master had lurked behind its blasphemous schemes. It was Brenna de Lorraine, who had every reason to believe she was dead. Harmony, being Harmony, elected to disprove this not through theological debate, but by placing her ear against Brenna's chest and listening. There, beneath confusion, pain, and draconic indignation, she heard it. A heartbeat. A living heartbeat. Brenna insisted the gods themselves had told her she had died. When she tried to speak further, strange sigils flared across her body, and pain drove her to her knees. Harmony, battered and exhausted though she was, offered a prayer to Harula. In answer came a sensation she had read of, but never truly believed she would feel. Direct, divine intervention. The gods had acted. Harmony understood enough. She embraced Brenna fiercely and informed her that, whether she liked the gods or not, gratitude might be appropriate. Brenna, short of breath and perhaps short of patience, seemed less certain. Still, Harmony gave the command that mattered most. No more dying. Meanwhile, Barden, practical as ever, discovered 7 sword shards upon the altar. Thomas suspected they were best turned in at the guild, and Barden agreed. The crypt had yielded its prize, its horror, and its miracle. The Misfits were in no condition to press deeper, especially not with Brenna half-resurrected, Harmony half-spent, and the rest, no doubt, 3/4 traumatized. Thus they withdrew. For once, mercifully, the path home was uneventful. No traps, no further undead, no falling statues, no abyssal doorways, no strange birds coughing blood. A rare gift. I shall not question it. I shall only mark the date and assume the gods were distracted. When the Misfits reached the guild, their report caused immediate alarm. A vampire had been present. A vampire had been defeated. This was the sort of news that causes guild clerks to run, guild masters to swear, and high-ranking adventurers to begin pretending they had pressing business elsewhere. The guild moved quickly, posting an emergency investigation into the crypt while rewarding the party for their efforts and compensating them for the sword shards. For a moment, one might even say matters seemed stable. Naturally, this did not last. The Misfits took time to recover, though recovery for this particular group appears to mean work until slightly less injured than acquire new problems. Brenna took guard work for a few gammels, though her thoughts remained tangled with death, gods, strange memories, and whatever divine meddling had dragged her back from the edge. A proud drake does not easily accept being saved by powers she distrusts, and Brenna accepted it with all the grace of a cat in a bath. Harmony, however, did something remarkable. After the disaster of her prior scouting attempt, an event that history shall remember as the proud scout and the toppled statue, she began pestering a grass runner scout at the guild to teach her actual scouting. She also submitted herself to trials at the temple, seeking to rise closer to Harula's light. Whether this represents wisdom, guilt, or simply the natural growth of a girl who has realized enthusiasm is not a substitute for training, I cannot say. But it is growth, nonetheless. Barden continued his practical work. Thomas proved his stewardly skills remained intact. And Harmony, newly enriched and newly determined, purchased herself new armor and a mass-produced saber. She showed it to Barden with all the joy of a child presenting a holy relic. Barden, being kind, praised it. Brenna, being Brenna, called it a toy. Harmony's heart visibly cracked in half. Barden tried to soften the blow, reminding her that it was a good saber and that better weapons would come in time. Yet the moment had already landed. For Harmony, the weapon was a symbol that she was trying to grow, trying to fight, trying to stand beside companions who often seemed carved out of steel, shadow, fury, or all three. For Brenna, of course, a sword is not merely a weapon. It is soul, pride, bloodline, and probably at least 3 grudges in metal form. A week passed. Then the guild changed. Adventurers vanished from the streets. In their place appeared armed figures bearing flaming fist emblems. The guild doors stood slightly open. No laughter, no boasting, no clatter of mugs or jobs being claimed. Only silence. And, from within, the sound of someone crying. Pinned to the door was a notice. The guild leader had been arrested. The debt was 60,000 gammels. The crime? Adventurers had destroyed the sewers. In 8 days, the guild would be disbanded, its assets seized, and its remaining members held accountable if the debt was not paid. Let us pause to admire the audacity of bureaucracy. Somewhere, some official looked upon catastrophe and decided the solution was collective financial ruin. Truly, governance is a dungeon without treasure. The guild girl, alone and weeping behind the counter, explained what had happened. Mercenaries had arrived suddenly. The guildmaster had refused to sell out the guild, and so he had been taken. So had the high-ranking adventurers. Others had defected or been hired away. A newly discovered dungeon had been under preparation for exploration, but now the mercenaries were heading there instead. The guild was hollowed out. Nobody was left. Harmony, with instinctive compassion, rushed to comfort the girl. Barden, steady as stone, immediately understood the practical horror. As guild members, they were now part of the problem, whether they liked it or not. Brenna leapt to the obvious conclusion. Debt, seizure, perhaps slavery. Thomas, who has a concerningly casual relationship with political violence, suggested blowing up the baron responsible. Barden objected to regicide over sewer damage. Harmony, for reasons she insisted were entirely impersonal, also objected to regicide.
And besides, nobility are very rarely anything noble. But money has a tendency to butter them up. Keep them on your good side and they won't smash you down, overthrow you, or force you to send your youngest daughter to a temple of a small-time foreign god.
Harmony sighed.
And anyway, let's go. We have a guild to save.
Thomas, however, was not joking as much as one might hope. He spoke bitterly of the kingdom rotting like an old apple. His cheer returned quickly, as it often does, but for a moment, something sharper showed beneath the butler's polish. The Misfits considered their options: run, rebel, pay. Barden favored paying first. Brenna admitted a rebellion would require more strength than they possessed. Harmony wondered whether they might negotiate a payment plan, which is an adorable thought, and proof that temple education does not adequately prepare one for baronial extortion. Still, there remained one chance. The new dungeon. Baumgarten, the guild girl, steadied by the Misfits, explained what little she knew. Baumgarten was a sword dungeon that had appeared near the ruins of an old village. It was said to contain riches. More importantly, its layout reset each day. There was also, apparently, some manner of tax being extorted under the kingdom's authority. A dungeon that resets daily, filled with treasure, currently stocked by armed opportunists and politically convenient thieves? In other words, adventurer bait of the highest grade. Thomas argued that paying tyrants only fed tyrants. He was not wrong. Barden argued that getting the money was the practical first step. He was not wrong either. Brenna noted that 4 adventurers against a kingdom's army was a poor death. And while Brenna has a flair for violent overstatement, she was also not wrong. Harmony listened, weighed the room, and then did something unusual. Her posture changed. Her voice sharpened. For a heartbeat, she was not the bouncing priestess with coffee dreams and a new saber. She was poised, composed, and unmistakably noble. She asked questions. She probed the guild clerk gently, but with an air of authority that seemed to force the woman to compliance. When it was done, Harmony thanked the guild girl and promised they would do what they could. Then, just as quickly, Harmony returned to herself and declared it time to get
Dungeon rich.
Thomas noticed. Of course he noticed. He had served noble houses before, and he recognized the mannerisms. Outside the guild, he asked whether they were all nobles. Harmony sputtered. Brenna threatened physical, wall-related consequences. Barden denied the matter plainly. Thomas smiled the smile of a man filing information away for later, which is always alarming in a butler. Harmony insisted she was merely a poor, normal priestess of Harula. Before they departed, the conversation somehow shifted, as misfit conversations do, from rebellion and debt to pregnancy, kissing, and whether Brenna was, in any possible interpretation, a father-to-be. Harmony had, in the last week, apparently required explanation from Amalia and Adrian that a kiss, even an intimate one, does not result in pregnancy. Adrian had explained further than necessary. Harmony was horrified. Brenna was confused. Barden attempted, with admirable desperation, to redirect everyone back toward the dungeon. This is why dwarves live long lives. They know when to abandon a conversation. Still, beneath the absurdity, something meaningful lingered. As the others moved forward, Thomas hung back, and with a reassuring whisper informed Harmony that,
I know you first as a good person. Harmony, I wouldn't dream of committing regicide against you.
Harmony gulped. A wise reaction. And so the Misfits set out once more. They passed the farmers they had once helped, now accompanied in the fields by a humming slave, a small, uncomfortable glimpse of the wider world's machinery grinding on, indifferent to heroics and debts alike. Further north, the road bent toward forest and ruin. There, beyond the trees, rose the entrance to the old village's remains. And before them stood not merely a dungeon mouth, not some humble cave or crumbling cellar, but a large castle. One guard waited at the entrance. Baumgarten had opened. The guild had 8 days.
And so, the Merry Misfits find themselves once more standing at the threshold of calamity. Though, I suppose by now, threshold may be too generous. They have already kicked in the door, tracked mud upon the rug, and asked whether the pantry contains coffee. A vampire has fallen. A drake has returned from death, or something near enough that I shall leave the theological accounting to the priests. A guild now hangs beneath the hammer of debt, politics, and that most dreadful of monsters, municipal authority. 8 days, 60,000 gamels, 1 dungeon. A lesser company might flee. A wiser company might negotiate. A quieter company might even investigate discreetly. Thankfully for history, and regrettably for my nerves, the Merry Misfits are none of these things. They go now to Baumgarten, where riches may wait, danger certainly waits, and answers, as ever, have hidden themselves somewhere inconvenient, probably behind a locked door. Until next time, keep your ledgers balanced, your swords sharp, and never underestimate the destructive potential of adventurers with good intentions.